All right, thank you so much. Welcome to another episode of the Love, Hope, Lyme podcast. My name is Fred Diamond. I'm the author of Love, Hope, Lyme, what family members, partners, and friends who love a chronic Lyme survivor need to know. You could find the book on Amazon. The PDF, Ilana and Terry, has been free from day one. So if you'd like the electronic version of the book, the PDF, feel free to reach out to me on Facebook Messenger, and I'd be happy to send you a copy of Alana. We've sent over thousands, about 3,000 copies of Love, Hope, Lyme PDF. So feel free to reach out to me. Happy to send a copy to you today. Again, if you're listening to the show on Apple Podcasts, thank you so much. Go up, give us a 5-star review. We would greatly appreciate it. Or if you're watching this on YouTube, thank you so much. Give us a thumbs up, give us a comment, ask a question. I know Ilana will be checking the comments, and I'd be happy to see what you have to say, and we'll definitely get back to you. So I'm excited for today's Love, Hope, Lyme show. When I published my book, and actually even before I published the book, Ilana and Terry, by the way, we have Ilana Drucker and Terry Drucker on the show. We're going to be talking about the relationship between a chronic Lyme survivor and her caregiver mother, and the relationship and the ups and the downs and things that people would love to know. You know, it's interesting, when I first wrote Love, Hope, Lyme, I thought that my readership was going to be 100% family members, partners, and friends. Right. I wrote the book when I wanted to understand what someone in my life was going through. Turns out about 90 to 95% of the audience of the podcast and of the book have been chronic Lyme survivors who are looking for ways to get more support and ways to tell their family members what they need, and what's working and what might not be working. I started posting some things on Facebook. A mutual friend of ours reached out to me and said, "You need to meet my friend Ilana," and we connected, and we've had many conversations about what you've gone through. You're also an author, so why don't you tell us a little bit about your journey? Tell us about your book if you'd like, and that'll tee up the conversation we're going to have with you and your mother.
Wonderful. First of all, thank you so much, Fred. Thank you for having myself and my mother, Terry, on your podcast. I feel really honored. I have read your book, and you and I met through mutual friends, as you said. My journey started in 2012 with the first exposure to ticks while running a dog after we were evacuated from Battery Park in New York City. And it doubled as a deer hunting ground, unbeknownst to myself. And I don't recall any symptoms at the time. I don't recall a bite. However, there were many ticks covering myself and our dog. Fast forward to 2016, I went to the Poconos for a camp reunion, and we were doing all kinds of outdoor activities. My passion for nature, I think we were canoeing. Something got me. I don't know whether it was a spider, a sand flea, another tick, whatever it was. And after that, about 3 days later, my life devolved, as I have been healing from Lyme, primarily the psychiatric implications of Lyme disease, Bartonella, and Babesia, which are co-infections. And over the last, my gosh, 8 years, quite a journey. I know we'll get to those questions in just a moment. I have published a book. It's primarily poetry, spoken word pieces, which I translated onto the written page. It is called Stripped Down, and I'm happy to make that available as you'd like. It's for sale on Amazon. And the other thing that's been, of which I'm particularly proud, is during COVID, when things were, for everyone in our world, very, very challenging, I started an online Facebook group. I believe you're a member of it, Fred, so thank you for that. It's the acronym is OPLAC, kind of sounds like Aflac, the duck insurance commercial, but it is Overcoming Psychiatric Lyme and Co-Infections. And that group is just about 1,500 worldwide members. And we are working hard to disseminate information, resources, and different healing tools, techniques, and modalities to try and help people navigate this often very challenging journey.
Yeah, and one of the previous episodes we did of Love, Hope, Lyme was on the psychiatric symptoms. And of course, we had Dr. Bransfield, and you were very helpful in helping us form some of the questions. We got some feedback from people in the group as well. So I encourage people who follow you and are members of your group to find the Love, Hope, Lyme episode. with Dr. Bransfield. All right, Terry, let's bring you into the conversation here. Again, Terry Drucker, you're Alana's mother. Thank you for being on the show. Thank you
Well,
for,
thank you for inviting me.
well, I'm excited to talk to you both and to get your perspective, and just want to acknowledge you up front for, for the amazing mother that you are. Uh, when did you realize that Lyme disease was becoming a defining factor in your lives?
When it became a 24/7, I don't know what's wrong with me. I don't know what's wrong with me. I don't know what's wrong with me. When we finally, which took quite a while, it was a journey to get the diagnosis, because as you know, it's not a recognizable disease in many doctors' offices who are particularly, and I'm married to an orthopedic surgeon, so who was a very Western oriented physician. You diagnose, you fix, you move on. Saying that personally, no parent should have to go through this because, as you said, there are mental implications from Lyme and its co-infections. The point is that when I reach my least bit of patience and hope and my anger, and her suicidal ideations were so intense one day that it was on during whenever it was, and my husband was playing golf. I took her to the local hospital, and they told me they would take good care of her, and not to worry. And I had her admitted. They don't exactly tell you what happens. She had to take off after I left. I found out she had to take off all of her clothes. She had to give everything that could have ever implicated that she may want to take her life, such as a shoelace. They scrutinized everything about her, and it was horrifying. She went in willingly. I do have to say that because she knew that she needed help. But unfortunately, this is not the kind of help, and I urge parents or loved ones or any caretaker to think not only once, twice, three times, but all the way down the road of the implications of doing this when that's not really, in our experience, what should have been done.
Yeah. So, Alana, do you remember that circumstance? I'm sure you do. Do you want to tell us about it?
Oh, sure. So, the journey didn't start with that incident. There were myriad and minor physiological symptoms of which, I weathered very well. I came into this extremely healthy, very active, very fit, very successful. And so I think that set up my physical body to weather this journey fairly well. And like I said, the sequela of everything that I've lost and all of that.
So, Terry, you gave us a graphic description of that. Tell us more about, how the experience of living with Lyme disease shifted your understanding of each other's role of as mother and daughter. I've met with a lot of mothers of teenage daughters who struggle with Lyme. Some of them have become great friends, and they've explained to me what it's like going through. And give us some of the perspectives on how the role shifted, and then I'm kind of curious, Alana, as well, from your perspective, how the roles have shifted.
Sure.
Well, it's interesting because your role as a mother, always a mother, once a mother, always a mother. The role shifted where I became not only her mother, but almost a full-time caretaker to an adult who was extremely successful, independent, lived on her own, traveled the world, free as the breeze, afraid of nothing, had a full life. And Ilana and I, from the day she was born, were always connected. We are extremely close. This gave us another level of closeness that I wish we never had to experience, but it definitely deepened my understanding of who Ilana was becoming, understanding more of who Ilana really was, because she was out of our house and she went to college. And as I said, we shared so much. And unfortunately, or fortunately for that matter, we're sharing this. She taught me many things of how to ex- go through this. She's a researcher by her profession, and she didn't leave because I was absolutely stymied. I had no idea where to go or what to do. And she was the one that did an unbelievable amount of research. And we went to every possible doctor, healer, quack, snake oil person that we
That is true.
that we tried. I had extreme exhaustion, anger, emotions that I was a very fortunate woman to never have had to experience really with anything this traumatic in our lives. And I think that also helped give us strength to get through this.
Yeah. So Alana, talk about your role. First of all, did you,
Sure.
one thing that I never thought about was when I was going through a relationship with somebody, I never thought of myself as a caregiver or caretaker. Did you
Mhm.
view your mother now as your caregiver, and was that the role that she played? And how did you feel about that?
Um, well, as my ability to function independently continued to wane, it was a necessary reliance upon my mother, as well as I have an ex who never left my side since this journey began and continues. It was extreme. Yes, I viewed my parents as caregivers on a financial level, on an emotional level, on a residential level, on a logistical level. The hardest part for me, I mean, my mother, as you can see, is very hip, vibrant, vital woman at an older age. And I would may this continue for decades, mom, and be healthy and be well. Generally speaking, we know things happen. However, the being a patient starting at age 50, dependent upon my parents, whereas I never was prior, was extremely difficult. This all coincided with COVID, my living in my parents' home. And I joke, it's not funny, in a gated Florida community when I'm from New York City. And so for me to be reliant on them emotion in all the ways I just named, Fred, it was brutal. It shouldn't be that way. One would imagine if my parents are growing older, I would be there to serve that role as their daughter. As a middle-aged woman, I don't like to say that, but it's true. As a middle-aged woman, it was extremely painful. It was humiliating. It's embarrassing. I have great guilt. I have tremendous shame. The title of my book is called Stripped Down, because I feel as though everything I had built in 5 decades of life was stripped away from me. And some of the most challenging parts were not being able to discern how much of this was Lyme disease, Bartonella, something quote unquote more medical or organic, versus the PTSD, the loss, uh, mental illness from which I never prior suffered. So it was very, very difficult. I'm devastated that our relationship has turned into this. My mother was and remains, she is a best friend, and this has irreparably changed our lives and our family.
Yeah, we're going to talk more about that, but I just kind of thank you for that answer, by the way. And by the way, I just want to applaud you both. I mean, this is probably over, it's already probably the most emotional show we've ever done on the Love Hope Line podcast, and I'm sure it's going to get even deeper as we continue. So I applaud you both. I applaud you both for your bravery, but I'm sure there are some moments where the journey has strengthened your relationship. And let's just kind of address that for a second, because I know we're going to get deep into some more things. But Alana, how has this journey strengthened the relationship, if you will?
Are you asking me?
No,
Ask
he's
Alana
asking me.
first. Yeah,
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't hear who you asked.
yeah.
So I think my mother mentioned it earlier, Fred, that a mother's love
Mm.
doesn't change. Once a mother, always a mother. I am blessed in ways that I don't think I have words to describe. Family doesn't necessarily leave. In my case, they didn't leave. I know that's not the situation for many others. So it has deepened our relationship in the sense that we spend so much more time together. And that is not necessarily the natural order of things, right? My mother has her beautiful independent life, and I had mine. So I am more dependent upon my mother. The ways in which it strengthened the relationship, Fred, are that we are so honest with each other. We are so transparent. And I come from a family that really celebrates success, and glass is always half full. I was not equipped with tools for dealing with adversity or illness. And I was taught if you set your mind to something, to anything, you will achieve it. Dr. Bransfield said to me, your ego is no match for Lyme disease. And I laughed at him, and it has proven true. And I'm doing a lot of ego work and spiritual work to find my purpose. The ways in which it has strengthened my relationship with my mother are that we speak honestly to each other. We have learned to hear each other, her perspective, my perspective, and allow each other to hold space. We have seen the realities of relationship and life change because of Lyme disease, and we have seen the dark side together. If you knew what we've experienced together, everything from ketamine trips, trying to address this, to getting my port inserted with her sleeping in a chair in the hospital, to her almost daily receiving texts saying, Mom, I don't want to live this way anymore. I can't imagine what that's like as a mother, but we are stronger. We understand what's true. We understand that life can be challenging and difficult, and yes, dark and shadowed. And I believe that it has softened our family as a whole. And it has certainly deepened the relationship with my mother beyond just the laughter and the fun. And I can't wait to go back to those moments.
All right, great answer. Terry, I want to talk to you about some of the frustrations or misunderstandings that have happened. So, have there been moments of frustration or misunderstanding that have changed how you communicate with each other?
Yes, because when Alana's, some part of this, not Alana, and by the way, she would always apologize for her words, for the expense, for all the things that she had discussed. And I kept on reiterating over and over, you cannot apologize for something that was not your fault. You have to keep reemphasizing, you have to accept the fact that you have an illness. And once you do that, we can move forward. We can't keep looking backwards. And the frustration is, truthfully, many mornings, almost most of them, I wake up to very bad texts from her. I have learned to stop reacting to them because that's a form of venting. She may get through it after she's done venting, but I'm left with knots in my stomach. I had to put somewhat of a stop on that. If you can't say something good, and say nothing, because many times it took me a long time to stop being also, and you can support, but you cannot keep enabling. You have to have your parameters. You have to have boundaries. I will listen to so much, and then I have to cut it off. Um, there, I don't know what more, to say about that, because this is like you're learning to be a parent from the day the baby is born. This is a whole new cycle of life, and you learn on the job. Hopefully, you're learning correctly. And yes, and I've had input from some of her caretakers who have been excellent. Because what do I do with this? How do I respond to this? Because many times my questioning, which is the worst thing you can do when somebody is ruminating and going on, is probably trying to stop the conversation, but definitely don't ask questions. Well, why did you take your meds? Did you take your meds? What are you doing? Why did you change this doctor? Which was a very frequent occurrence. And I'm usually, you go straight ahead with one decision and you stick to it. In this disease, it's not like, God forbid, 1,000 times if you're diagnosed with a disease that has a protocol. This protocol varies from person to age, and who you may be lucky or lucky enough to get on your medical team.
I have a question for you, Terry, as a follow-up question, and the answer you gave is a great one for the caregivers, the parents listening. Um, did you feel powerless as you saw your daughter going through this? Can you communicate if that was ever an emotion that you had to deal with?
100%. 100%. I had no idea how to stop this other than, again, if she has appointments, I would be there. As she told you, we tried everything under the sun. We tried whatever anybody had suggested, we read about, or whatever we did, and we TMS. She told you about the infusion. She told you about the ketamine. I mean, what she's gone through, to me, she became a heroine in her pursuit of trying to find a cure. And I didn't do that. I didn't find the doctors that I found were the wrong ones because they were so Western and they would examine her and say, "It's nothing wrong with her."
Yeah,
That's very, very hard to hear when you know pardon me, when you know darn well there is something wrong with your child who was never sick a day in her life and came out with all these symptoms that you never heard of.
May I
yeah,
ask a quick question? I know in time, Fred,
yeah.
could you ask mom to quickly characterize what changed in me so that people understand that stark contrast and what she was responding to in terms of those symptoms? Is that all
Sure.
right?
Yeah, Terry, yeah, why don't you answer that question?
Which there's a lot of answers to that. Her lack of her, she became dependent, totally and completely dependent. She couldn't take care of herself. She couldn't cook for herself, which is what it came about circuitously of how she ended up living with us. Because when she came back to South Florida in those early years, before we knew what was wrong with her, she came to live with us because there were people living in her apartment that she owned at the time, her condo. And we said, silly to rent, live with us, you'll save that money. And then when your tenants move out, you can move in. Well, that's when everything went to pot and it became and became her residence. And waking up every day to the fact that she would not get out of bed. She couldn't get out of bed. How do you get an adult child to get out of bed? So I would do a lot of screaming and threatening, and then the crying and the mood swings. It became almost an impossible situation until through a process that things started to get under control. But she lost her business, she lost her home, her own home, she lost her friends. So what do you do? Where do you go? How do you find this kind of help that can really say, we've got this? Because
Yeah.
one doctor would say, well, you also fell off a horse, which is no joke, but she had
Mm.
a concussion in her early 20s. And I have found, and I think there's validity to this, if your child has had any pre-existing conditions, I bet my life on it that Lyme disease in all its forms makes it worse. It becomes your Achilles tendon,
Yeah.
such as she had anxiety. She always lived with anxiety.
Mm.
She had sleep issues. From the day she was born, she had her days and nights mixed up. I knew I was going
Mm.
to have an issue. And she did, through to this day, sleep and anxiety are worse than they ever have been.
So let's address some of the challenges again. You
Mhm.
know, one of the things is everybody who's listening to the show, for the most part, unless they're brand new, and we have a lot of people who are brand new to Lyme, so this is really helping them. There's sometimes people say there's as many as 40 different symptoms, that arise with Lyme. One thing I heard before is, if you have anxiety, does Lyme make it worse, or does Lyme cause the anxiety, to start up? There's so much complication. Like you said before, Terry, a couple times, with Western medicine, it's like there's a problem, you have some medicine or treatment, and it should take care of it. With Lyme, since there's so many complexities, and of course, all the co-infections, and each protocol is different. And you also did a great answer where almost every doctor that you meet may tell you the same thing, right? And then you get a doctor who says, well, you did fall off a horse when you were 20. So that's the problem. It's not the Lyme disease. So we hear about all these complications. Give our listeners some understanding of what challenges have proven the most difficult over the course of this healing journey. And are these the same or are they different for both of you? Alana, why don't you go first?
Sure. Uh, the greatest challenge for me has been dealing with psychiatric symptoms,
Mm.
of which I never from which I never suffered prior to Lyme disease, and fighting each day to keep going. Dr. Bransfield actually was an amazing provider of mine. And unfortunately, I have not responded to psychiatric medications.
Mm.
The greatest challenges for me have been the loss of independence, um, the loss of my earning ability and ability to live and function alone in the world. Um, Being financially dependent on others probably is the hardest thing after the symptoms, Fred, right? And I mean, I want to say this, and it's not necessarily a direct answer to your question. Sometimes love isn't enough. I am so blessed with love. I am so blessed with support. And I was very blessed with personal resources as well as familial resources. Many do not have those blessings. And in a lot of ways, I would argue that having the resources when this began actually served as a detriment to our journey. Too many choices, right? Too many providers. And I'm a runner because I solve problems. I want to research this and solve it. So for me, being financially dependent and not having my business, my independence, my autonomy, my New York community and friends and life has been brutal. The inability to function independently because I suffer from depersonalization and derealization, which make the world seem unreal and myself perhaps not fully here. So I would say the financial dependency and the loss of that autonomy of lifestyle, coupled with the challenges I have from the depersonalization and the derealization in functioning alone, socializing, working, traveling, exercising, all of the things that I wish I could do and used to do.
Yeah. Again, we're talking today with Ilana Drucker and Terry Drucker. Ilana is a chronic Lyme survivor. Terry is her mother. And we're talking about, the relationships and how Lyme changes it and how they've adjusted and how they care for each other and how they look at each other. Um, Terry, I'm just kind of curious, as a caregiver, you've given some answers before, but what is your advice for other caregivers to balance their own needs, the needs of other family members, with the demands of supporting your daughter at this stage through her illness?
Well, of course, there's many different circumstances, so I can only speak, for our family. And again, to reiterate what Alana said, we were very, very fortunate so far to be able to help her on many levels, resources, financial, how, et cetera, to get over rough spots. By the way, during this time, it was interesting. Alana was capable of taking on projects, work projects. And the one thing that I cannot emphasize enough is to never, ever, ever give up hope.
Mm.
Every day I wake up and I say, today's the day. Today I'm going to hear from Alana. Mom, I can see the world looks real. Alana, I think, has traveled a tremendous journey and for a cause and for a reason. She was and is an amazing human being who was given so much of herself before the illness, maybe to an expense of herself. And now her calling may very well be to help people go through what she went through, but with a a a pattern in mind of some of the pitfalls and some of the things that you should really try and pursue. So all I can say is again that I pray for that day. I know it's going to happen. I truly believe that Alana is going to come through this. She may not be the same, but she may even be better in so many different ways with having a new sense of humility that we're
Yep.
not invulnerable. I'm not saying that you are not humble, but
I wasn't that humble.
when when life is going beautifully, it's not so easy sometimes to take a look and say, well, why can't you do this? Why can't you do that? Oh, come on, get off your tush, get going. There's a certain amount of empathy that you develop. I'm not talking about you in general. I'm just talking and for the caregiver also. And I never really like to consider myself, because I don't like that term caregiver. I try to be supportive. And again, as the years went on, I'm a mother, I'm a wife of 61 years. I have 3 children. I have 5 grandchildren. And I received a message from that our family that we all love and need Alana, but Mom, we need you. And you have been absent from our lives. This cannot be all consuming, and it's not healthy for Alana either. We have to all band together, and we want our mother back. And of course, my husband.
Wow. Ooh. So Ilana,
Yeah, woo from here too.
yeah. Ooh. Ooh. That's a great answer, Terry, by the way. A couple questions, Ilana. So
Yeah.
after listening to that,
Okay.
what a beautiful thing, and such a well thought out answer as well. Uh, how has your relationship with your mother helped you navigate the physical and emotional challenges of living with Lyme disease? And you've given a lot of great examples, but in summary, like I said, this is really the first show that we've done with the Love Hope Lyme podcast. And by the way, Terry, originally I was going to call my book Love Loss Lyme because it was alliterative, and then I just learned that this is a community that's just replete with loss. And as you know, the word hope is very important to a lot of our people. So I changed it to Love Hope Lyme with hopefully giving people some hope. So I want to talk about that. Give us some thoughts again on how your mom has helped you navigate the physical and emotional challenges.
She's been my guidepost. She has been my anchor. We do not live together, which has helped our relationship. It was especially volatile when we were together, and that's really hard because, as I mentioned, my mother was my best friend, and most of my memories of my mother and my relationship are light and fun and laughing till you pee in your pants kind of experiences. So my mother reminds me of who I was. My mother reminds me near daily of what is still possible. And the part about setting boundaries is critical. Do you want to say something, Fred? Do you want to jump in?
Nope.
Oh, I thought you were about to jump in. I'm a moderator for a living, so I'm very keen on observing dynamics. Knowing that you are not alone and that family is still there is very helpful. Hearing what my mother just said about how much the other family members need her, it hurts. It's painful because when you're going through an experience like this, I have become very self-focused. My illness, my symptoms, my pain are all consuming, and I expect wrongly, inappropriately, I would never have thought this way prior, that other people need to understand. And one of the greatest frustrations is I'm constantly saying, if you only understood symptoms, love is not enough because it doesn't make these symptoms go away. I am blessed with love. And sometimes the symptoms really, it's not necessarily a one-on-one fight. So there are a couple of things that I think are important to say. No one is coming to save you, right? I've had expectations that my mother, my ex, my best friend, a provider of the multifarious hundreds who I've seen can somehow save me. And the best advice that I can offer to families, to fellow people who are healing from chronic Lyme, is that you need to believe in healing. I actually think the word hope is not active enough. I think the word belief is something that I can actually take and run with. Hope for me is a little bit more passive. So I have to believe in healing. I have to fully understand that as blessed as I am with a mother such as Terry Drucker and a family, an extended family and friends who haven't left, they're not going to be able to save me. They're not going to be able to live this journey for me. They can accompany me. They can support me. I sometimes would like to just not be asked questions, just to have someone hear me, see me, and hold space for me while I express, because a lot of times the expression in and of itself is a release valve for the pain. Mom can't fix me. She is my guidepost. She is my love. She can listen, she can see me, she can hear me. Patience is absolutely essential in this journey because it takes as long as it takes. My sister shared that with me actually when I was having that horrible stay, and the institution was fine. I don't want to diss the institution. So keep going, right? We've got this and we've got you. And at the end of the day, she cannot save me as much as she loves me. It's up to me. And that's what I try to inculcate in OPLAC, That's what I try to write about in my book, Stripped Down. And this will bring you to your knees in cases. Every case is so individual. It's more physical, it's more mental health. But I can say in almost every instance of people with whom I've spoken, I'm sure, Fred, you know this as well, Lyme disease and other chronic illnesses, or really anything that people go through, will have an impact on your mental health. Bring in COVID, bring in the current political situation, bring in increased isolation and loneliness. We need each other for support and to heal. And then it comes back to the individual's belief, faith, hope, self-love, and then the support of people like my mom.
So before I ask you both for final thoughts, I'm just kind of curious, Ilana. I've met so many people. One of the reasons why I wrote my book, Love, Hope, Lyme, is because I met so many people who were disengaged from their family, who had relationships end, who had family that didn't believe them,
Yeah.
who went to the internet and searched chronic Lyme and found a CDC page that said chronic Lyme disease does not exist. So we've seen tons of those things. Did you ever consider leaving your family and just pushing them away and just, just it sounds like, like Terry, from what she's talking about, believed you from day one. And I know that there were issues, et cetera, with all the stuff, but did you ever consider abdicating your family, or have they always been there for you?
Wow, Fred, that's a
Briefly.
very interesting, briefly, yes, very interesting question. And just to be clear, I wasn't believed from the beginning. My sister and brother-in-law believed me from the beginning. I wasn't diagnosed until a year and a half after symptom onset, and then Bartonella a year after that. So did I ever consider leaving my family? No. Where would
Good.
I go? No. I have the most incredible family. I am blessed to be part of this family. It is hard to be reminded of everything I've lost and who I used to be, but I'm not in this family. I also think I've taught this family quite a lot as a result of this experience. My greatest hope is to pay this forward and to continue to help other people navigate this. And no, I didn't want to leave my family. I guess I wanted to shake them sometimes and say, just listen to me, just hold me, just love me, just tell me it's going to be okay.
Yeah. All right. Once again, I want to thank Ilana Drucker and Terry Drucker for being on the Love, Hope, Lyme podcast. Again, if you're watching this on YouTube, give us a thumbs up, leave a comment. I know that Ilana will definitely check them and reply back to you. Also, if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, please give us a 5-star review. Well, once again, I want to thank you both for being very brave, for talking about things that a lot of family members just don't talk about. Especially a lot of chronic Lyme survivors who are going through very, very, I mean, anybody listening to this podcast or, watching it on YouTube, they know the challenges that someone in their life is going through. And I know that they learned a lot from listening to this show. It's a ridiculous, horrible disease that no human being should have to endure. Terry, I just want to acknowledge you for the support you've given your daughter, for being selfless, and just want to acknowledge you for that. I want to give you both a chance, just briefly, any final thoughts, something we might not have discussed. Terry, anything you want to say just to kind of wrap up today's show?
Well, I think on a political level, if it's at all possible for this to become a recognized disease by the CDC, and that funding is going to be provided by insurance companies. Because as I said, on the financial side, we were very blessed that we were able to pursue all the things we discussed, plus. That's not the case for many people, and it could bankrupt them.
Yeah.
And I just can't imagine that this cannot be done. And I'm praying for that. I'm praying for everybody that has this diagnosis, that they will find the strength to carry on. And, Alana says there's a better word than hope, and I agree with her, but I still cling to that. And I know that for sure she's going to make it. There's no
Very good.
doubt in my mind.
All
She
right.
has this strength of character that is amazing. And she's awesome. And she's a role model for all
Absolutely.
of us.
All right. Ilana, anything you want to say to wrap up today's show?
I do. I want to just say, excuse me, that kind of continuing on the theme of No one is coming to save you. Our loved ones, we want the fix. We want that one panacea, the one magic bullet. It doesn't exist. I hope that people find the things that work, mental, physical, medical, spiritual, all of that. Do not burn out loved ones. Do not exhaust them, because the empathy and the emotional support that I need is not commensurate with an accomplished, successful 57-year-old woman. I need it constantly. I burned them out. I exhausted them over the last 7 years. Boundaries are critical. Allowing people to have their own lives while still loving and caring for you, and accepting it, as hard as it may feel, because this is it can be a very lonely journey and a very lonely disease. So my advice for those suffering from chronic Lyme in the context of family dynamics and caregiving, or even loved ones, this is true of, partners and siblings and all of the things, friends, is get the support that you need from as many different sources as possible, so that you don't exhaust the ones you need the most. I joined support groups. A lot of people say they're deleterious to healing. I didn't find that. I find that talking to people who get my symptoms is validating. Talking too much, harmful. Living the life as best you can with symptoms is the best advice that I can offer. And finding support in groups, online, getting busy, doing the things that you used to do, even with the symptoms, to your very best ability, will help to preserve the relationships. Because at the end of the day, colleagues left me, friends left me. I got bitter, I got angry, I can't understand. I thought I was a lovely person. I'm not so lovely while I'm going through this journey. But giving the opportunity to have them and preserve, my family never left me. And for that, I'm eternally grateful and unbelievably blessed. And I dedicated my book to my mother. And I want to thank you, Fred, for the opportunity to share our differing points of view, sometimes shared experience. I call it the strain of Lyme, a mother-daughter journey toward healing. And so with that, Mom, I love you deeply. You are still my best friend, and I look forward to doing podcasts from a deeper side of healing and recovery sometime soon.
All right. Once again, I want to thank Ilana Drucker and Terry Drucker for being on today's Love, Hope, Lyme podcast. My name is Fred Diamond.